Tell me what you think of the front end.
Ooh, that looks nice.
That looks nice. Did that come out kind of like what you were thinking? Yeah? Did I do okay?
Yeah, real good.
Real good?
I didn't think that you would chop this in half, though.
Oh. Should I not have chopped it in half?
It looks good.
It looks good? Alright. So, today I'm going to be working on this rat's nest here. The gas tank to go right in here. We've got a racing panel switch to go on here. And John wants a safety kill tether on it, which I think is a good idea considering his age and experience. The other thing that I came up with is we have that rear panel that came off of a similar machine. And what I think we're going to do is take this right here and bring it out the width of a battery and put that panel on the other side of the battery so that we can have a spot for the battery to sit here, because John weighs a grand total of what?
65.
He weighs 65 pounds, and most people that are going to ride on a machine like this are about 200 pounds. So we need to compensate by putting some weight back here. And I figure since we need a battery anyway, we should just put the battery box right in here. Now, I know that's going to manage to go and bring this out so that there's a spot that it might hit coming down off of stuff. But that's still a good solid foot off of the ground. So I'm not overly worried about it at this point. I might skid plate it just a little bit, but let's figure that out next. The first big thing at this point is figuring out this rectifier circuit here in order to show you guys. So what you'll see is there's a wire there and a wire there that are going into the case. So if we look where I have this zip tie pointed, you'll see right there the zip tie is pointing to two wires that are coming out from underneath the flywheel. And those two wires come down, and there are these white wires here that go into the rectifier circuit. And then we've got this one big giant black charging wire coming out of there, which means this red wire is what connects directly to the battery for the charging circuit. This is a grounded rectifier, so you want to make sure that this green wire is here and in place. In fact, it really doesn't hurt to put an extra one right directly from there to the frame. A lot of these Kohlers will actually have a grounding wire. This one's broken off. They'll have a grounding wire right here that goes directly to the battery or to the frame. So it's a good idea to make sure you have one of those in place in case corrosion builds up underneath the engine and causes grounding issues. So from there, we know that this big giant black one right here is our charging wire that goes directly to the battery. This white one is our coil kill. So if we follow this up, we can see it goes into the case there. And let me see if I can angle it just right. So there's your coil. And right there, that stubby thing in the right-hand side, that is your coil kill wire coming up and over and running down. So we need to be able to get that red wire wired across and onto this incoming stud on the starter. And this is our starter solenoid, so this is incoming. This is what we put 12 volts to in order to kick the starter over. And this is what's actually going from the solenoid to the starter motor. So what we need is to connect that to there. And with a big giant cable, we need to run through this frame to the rear end and then to a battery tray that we need to make on the rear. I just want to take a sec to go and show you guys that I've set up a build log for the Cub crawler build. And I'm going to continue doing this log in order to be able to put some more technical info up for people and to allow you to be able to log in, ask some questions, and then also I'm going to be posting up pictures that are pre-YouTube videos. That way everybody can have some interaction, ask questions. All of this was posted before this video ever was online. And I'd like to be able to support this group and help grow the forum. And it allows me to be able to put in information that is boring but technical that YouTube usually sees as being extra. So if you'd like, go over and join the All-Terrain Lawn Tractor forum and come help support a really cool group. Alright, so we've got our positive line here run down through. We've got a basic battery tray here. So what I'm going to do is clean this up right above where this battery tray line is going to be. And I'm going to weld that solid. And then we've got the plate that we just cut off. And we're going to take that and we're going to weld that right like so. And probably put in a bar here and a bar here. And at that point, the battery is not going to go anywhere. But what I might do is make some sort of bolt through, clamp down, something or other. Haven't quite decided. But for now, we're just trying to get it up and running. And that'll hold plenty. This thing doesn't go fast enough to really bounce the battery up and out. So it shouldn't take too much to make it stay. A lot of people ask me about these racing panels and stuff like that, and I've done several conversion videos for running different engines and stuff. But the big thing about this is that these are set up in order to have a live kill wire, and we need to make it so it's a magneto kill setup. So that right there, that little tooth you can see, goes into this little notch. So what we have to do is grind out that tooth so that instead of having the notch going this way, you can put the switch in going this way, and it becomes a magneto kill. The other thing we're going to do for this is we're going to do like we do on the dragsters, and we're going to be putting a kill tether into this side, which means we'll still have a switch to toggle on lights or other accessories here. If we can get this thing to fire up. So we've got all the electrical wired in. After this, I'll go through and I'll show how all of it is wired up. We've got our throttle. We've got our choke here. We've got our instrument cluster here. So we're going to flip that up. This is our push button for start, auxiliary, and kill tether. So we'll take you guys and bring you over here. I haven't tried to start it. I haven't done anything other than flush a little bit of gas out of the fuel line, which means it's going to need a bit in order to suck some up, I'm betting. So pull the choke, and I'll go over how that's set up. I know you guys want to see that also. And here we go. Let's see if it'll do something. Okay, so there's something in the carb needs a little bit of tuning. Let's see if it'll kick back on. Now, let's give it some choke. Alright. Now you guys see I might know what I'm doing. We'll get into the boring part of the video where we walk around and we talk about how everything is wired. Right now we are going to do one thing. We're going to make sure that this starter rectifier is actually functional. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to get it running. Then we're going to come back here to the battery. And yes, that is a different battery than we started the video with. This one is a 350 cranking amp. The one we started the video with was 280 cranking amp. Now, what I forgot about with this was that a 280 for a single cylinder would have been absolutely perfectly fine on a belt drive unit. But this is a shaft drive unit, which means you are not just starting the motor, you are also shaft drive starting that pump in there at the same time. And when it's cold, that is a lot of cranking amp that it takes. So we had to upgrade batteries. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to start it up. We're going to grab a voltmeter and we're going to see if we actually get the voltage we should out of it. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is test and see what voltage we're at right now. So we are at 12.37. Now if the rectifier circuit is working correctly, that should change to about 13 volts when we test it running. Alright, let's start the boring side of this video. Battery. Make sure you have a straight to solid frame mounting point for the ground. In fact, you really should get paranoid and make 2 different grounding points, and that's what I will end up doing eventually. This is your positive side going back through up to the front. Yes, this gauge is probably a little bit too thin. It'll work fine for this single cylinder and for the light duty that we're doing. If this was a twin, I would use something much thicker. So this, we're going to follow up through and come around to where your starter solenoid is. Now, whether you have an independent solenoid or whether you have a starter mounted solenoid, the concept is still the same. We've got our incoming positive from the battery, and that's going to go to one side. The other big lug is going to go to your starter. And this is your positive incoming in order to trigger your starter solenoid. So when you push that button on the dash, that's what triggers this. Now, if you have a double prong here, one of those prongs needs to go directly to a chassis ground, because you need to be going to chassis ground so that you connect to that battery ground back there to create the whole circuit through the machine. Also, we talked about it earlier, this engine ground, because of grease and build up and grime and rust, you need to have a direct ground from your motor to the chassis also as a secondary setup. We can do it here. We could do it off of one of these starter bolts here directly to the frame. Any number of different ways to do it, but you need to go and have an independent ground. And that ground needs to be as thick as your starter cable, because you're going to have all your cranking amperage going through that if this corrodes out to the point it doesn't ground to the frame. Now, back to this. We've got our positive incoming. So we've got 2 wires coming out of this positive incoming. we've got this really thick red wire here. This really thick red wire is our charging wire. This wire is going to come up, it's going to go over, and it's going to come around to this rectifier circuit here. So we've got a red incoming rectifier wire right there that you can see. That red rectifier wire goes into the center of this rectifier plug, and the two white wires, as we talked about earlier, go into where your stator circuit is. So that converts what comes out of the stator to the 14 volts that we saw at the battery in order to charge the circuit. Now, the other thing you're going to see over here on this Kohler is this white wire. I don't know why Kohler does this, but for some reason, the coil kill wire on most blacktop Kohlers is usually the white wire. Not always, but 99.9% of the time, it's a white wire. That white wire on these Cub Cadet chassis connects to this yellow wire here. This yellow wire we're going to track up through because killing the motor is important, and we've got our kill toggle that we made before. So we've got our yellow wire coming in. We've got our black going directly to a chassis ground. We've also got another chassis ground coming across and connecting into this. The other side of this is connecting to this other yellow wire. We've got two independent forms of kill. Redundancy in this case is a good thing. The other reason why I put this where it is because if you're going after the kill, on most of these, if you slam them down into idle while they're still in drive, it'll stall the motor out anyway. So no matter what, in some form, if this thing starts to run away, you can kill it. You got the pull cord, you got the slap kill, you can slam it into idle and the pump pressure will kill it. You slam the choke and the back pressure will kill it. So 4 points of kill if this thing tries to run away and climb a tree or something. On the other side, we also have this blue wire. And all of this wire is all from this chassis except for the extended battery cable. This extended battery cable is actually off of a 2,000-pound winch, and so it should work fine temporarily. But we need a bigger thickness wire. So this blue wire comes back up, and it goes through this little coil here, comes up, and it connects to the back side of this, which apparently needs to be tightened up. And that goes to our push button. So if we hit that down, we can crank the motor. Oh, we should be able to crank the motor. Why are we not cranking the motor? Oh, because that broke free. See? So if I wedge that, I bet it'll work now. There we go. Okay. So then if we put that in the up position, we can start the motor. Except for it probably needs choke because it needs the carb cleaned. Yep. Let's give it some choke. Toggle up. And we need to fix the push button. Yeah. Chinesium. Job 3. So, from there, we've got this that comes with the green wire. And that green wire loops down, comes around, and goes right into there on our starter solenoid. You ever wonder what the difference is between a $5 Chinesium engine start button and a $20 one? There's a few things. So first of all, you take it apart by twisting it and popping it out like that. Now see that little piece there? That's what fits down in under these little rims. So see if I go like that, and it goes like that. And then you tighten the screws on either side in order to tighten it in, and it clicks in. But the thing is, on these cheap little ones, that is entirely flat on that edge. There's no lock-in point. See? So when this goes in, all it takes is just bumping it just a little bit, and next thing you know, your Chinesium start button has fallen out of your dash. So what happens when you're out on the trail, this bumps and it goes off into La La Land, and you're left with this sitting in your dash. How do you start your tractor? So if we look at this outside piece never moves, this inside piece does. So we've got a little white ridge right here. So if you grab a screwdriver, a jackknife, anything, you've got a slide piece right there, and you've got a slide piece right here, right there. That little itty bitty thing going like that is the only thing starting your tractor. That right there. So what happens on this is that when you push that, it pushes down through into this button right here. This is nothing but a bunch of glowy, showy junk. This is your actual button that you are pushing. And if you unscrew it, you will find there's a little push button piece in there that you can still use to start your tractor. So, what happens when your Chinesium button breaks is you upgrade your Chinesium button to one of these waterproof buttons, like this. See, now if I push it, you can buy these in 4 to 10 packs now on a regular basis. If you buy them in a group, they're like $4 or $5 a piece. If you buy them singularly at an auto parts store or a boat yard or anything like that, they can be upwards of $15 a piece. So I'll make sure there's a link for those in the description. I get asked about those on a regular basis, so I'll include that. Well, there you go. I wasn't planning to close out with another tutorial about push button starts and stuff, but hopefully that saves somebody out on the trail. I know a lot of you guys are starting to use those cheap Chinesium panels like I use on the racers and stuff. So hopefully that ends up helping you. Have fun. Thanks for sticking around.